Okay, g'day guys. I thought we'd just make a quick screen recording of some of the electronic music series tasks that you'll be doing this term and this semester. So we're going to start with the task titled EMS1. And we're going to have a quick look around Ableton Live and how to navigate some of the features there, as well as where to find the worksheet, and also how to actually do some of the tasks that the worksheet asks for. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to go to the CosAmp website. So what you need to do is just go into Google and you're going to just type in CosAmp, or you could even type in the College of Sound and Music Production. If you click on the link, you should come into a page similar to this. Okay, if I go back, you may find your page here, and we have lots of information here, but we also have a teacher site as well as a student site. We're all going to log into the student site. So on the student site, our username is SVHS and our password is Silverchair. So once you've typed that in, we log in. So this is our landing page for CosAmp. There are going to be some other tasks that we do. This is where we're going to do a fair bit of our theory work as well. And most of our reading and theory will be based around the Unit 19 electronic music production. To find our task sheets for the practical assessments, we can go onto this site, and under the practical tasks, premium practical tasks, we click here. And we then select the electronic music series on the side tab. Once we're in here, we can see the full list of practical activities we can do in this task. We're going to start with basic beats. Once we load this up, it gives us our list of what we need to actually do. With this, I want you to download a copy of this PDF. You'll see at the very end, we'll need to do some written work, some reporting. So have that saved into your EMS folder. Okay, so EMS Task 1 folder, keep it with your session folder. That way you know where to find it. So an overview. So with this first task, you're going to use Ableton Live to look at a group of loops that have been created into scenes. It can be triggered at the same time. This view is perfect for constructing song ideas and also to perform tracks live. So this is what we call clip view, okay? A large part of what makes Ableton Live unique is the ability to perform your original compositions live. So we can take elements out of all of your compositions. So if you've got 3 or 4 different compositions, we can mash them together, do all sorts of tricky stuff with it. So the objective of this is to the objective of this task is to listen to 5 of the beats generated in various styles from trap, house, and electronic music. And then you're going to produce 3 beats of your own in similar styles. You're going to learn how to import and trigger a drum sample as well. So with this task, it's really important that you just read through the instructions. It's going to step you through in a sequence, and then we go into creating our own drum beat. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to produce a drum beat in Ableton Live, so then you can visually see what it looks like and what we can do. So let's go to our Ableton Live view. Okay, so right now I have just a session that I loaded up. I've got a kick drum sample spread across the bottom, but that's not what we want. We actually want to load up our electronic music series. So I'm going to switch views again. So on my desktop, you can see I've got the electronic music practice task, okay, 1, clip view and basic beats. So I'm going to double click on this. Now, it's important to maybe mention now that you want this folder saved into your D drive. As a class, we need to go in next lesson and create our own DJ folder on the D drive, and that's where you're going to copy all of your work. Okay. So once we're into the electronic music series task 1, we're going to open the folder up, and there's going to be 2 folders. So here in this second folder is where we're going to find our samples. That's going to be important for the last task in this. If we go back, let's click on the first folder. This is where we find our session files. So I pointed out this in our first lesson, but just to go over it, this folder contains all of the work that we need to complete the task. So we've got project information, which is data from moving the faders around and different things in the program itself. We also have the samples, imported samples, samples that we've recorded through a microphone perhaps, and various other options. This link here that's titled EMS1 Clip View and Basic Beats, this is our file that links everything together. If I was to remove this out of the folder, then it will not be able to find the samples and the project information, and therefore you will not be able to load the project. So it's important that you keep all of this together, and really important when you submit your work to me for assessment that you don't just grab the icon and drag and drop that into the submission portal. You actually need to take the whole folder and submit the whole folder here. Okay, so let's go back in. We're going to load up the Ableton Live session now. Okay, so now we have our session view up in front of us and loaded. This is what we introduced and started playing around with in the last lesson. So let's look at through some of the basics. So there's a lot of things that we can look at and a lot of functions and things that are quite hard to kind of get your head around to start with. But as we get more familiar, it gets easier. Probably the first thing we need to point out is up the very top we have our play, stop and record buttons. And then over here on the left hand side we've got our beats per minute. So this is the speed that the song goes at. This is the amount of beats in the bar. We have a metronome that we can use when we're recording, and that's how that's our metronome loop. So right now we have a metronome that loops after one bar of music. On the left column here, we can expand this and shrink it down in and out of view to give ourselves more working space. But this is our menu system. This is where we can find all of our sounds. So when we start producing our own sounds and grabbing our own samples, this is where we go to search for different samples maybe that we've saved on our computer, or looking in the sample packs, sounds and samples that we've got actually loaded in with this program. We can look at different instruments. We've got a section for our drum beats, section for samples that we can draw from, and various different things that can be loaded up. Over here in the middle, I'll leave that up. Over here in the middle we have our what we call our arrange view or arrange page. And right now our arrange page is in clip view. The other view that we can look at is our timeline view. So this is where we can record audio and it just tracks it across. Some of you might be familiar with Audacity. This is perhaps what Audacity will show when you're recording an audio WAV file. We're going to be working mostly in clip view because ultimately we're going to create some music and start performing our music live. So in clip view, we can see we have our individual tracks. And in this case, we've got a drum beat that's comprised of 1, 2, 3, 4 different tracks. And down each track, we have clips inserted. And each clip has a different pattern. Okay, I'll show you how to look at those patterns soon. You can see snare, we've got our patterns here, and claps and hats. We can trigger individual samples. So I'm going to just trigger the kick drum. Alright, and to stop that sample, we press the square down the bottom. You'll notice that when I press the trigger a clip, it'll sometimes will take a moment to actually start playing. And what that is what we call quantize. What it's doing is it's just waiting for the start of the next bar. So if we have a look at this, okay, you can see that there was a little pause. If I do the same thing with the kick, okay, you can see it flash a little bit before it starts playing. And that's just to make sure that everything is in sync with each other. So we'll go into some music theory explaining bars and beats and things like that. But essentially what it is quantizing, it's locking that sample in to start at the new bar or the beginning of a new bar. Over here on the right hand side, we've got our master channel. So we've got all of our patterns set up on individual channels for each instrument. And we can click and trigger each individual pattern and mix and match. Or if we want to write our kick drum pattern across just the top, so we've also got them color coded, so this pink pack is all meant to go together. So we can actually trigger that over here and trigger them all together. So that's what our master is. Now as the music's playing and our samples are playing, you'll notice that we have these meters bouncing up and down. These are basically track meters. They tell us how loud a song is. And not every sound that we want in a song should be as loud as others. So sometimes we want to mix things so that we've got the snare quieter or the hi-hat louder. So if I was to play the first sample, I can use the track volume to drop the music out or raise it up. So I want more snare. Alright. Now if I bring everything up really loud, okay, you'll notice here on the right hand side I brought everything up super loud. I hope it didn't damage your ears in your headphones. But yeah, that went super loud, and we noticed that the track color went from green to red. Wherever possible, avoid that. So if you get any tracks in any point of your mix that's flashing red at you like that, you need to drop the volume and try and adjust your mix so that you're not getting those peaks. So that's what we call that, the tracks peaking. What happens is that when we get to that peaking point in a computer, it causes a lot of distortion and sort of ugliness. So try and avoid that. On our track view, we also have our mute buttons. So if I have my tracks muted, the square with the number on it will be grayed out. We can also solo, so you can have everything enabled and then press the solo button, and all you're going to hear is that soloed track. One other thing we're going to just point out is this top dial. Now this dial can manage, or it can create directional sound. So with our kick drum, if I want it to just come in our left ear, I'll drag the dial all the way to the left. If I want it to come just in the right, to the right, and in the middle, have it straight in the middle. So let's have a listen to that. I'm just going to solo the kick drum, and I'll have it just playing in the left ear. Now, if it's not playing in your left ear, you might have your headphones on back to front. So I'll bring it through to the right and back. So in the middle. So this is what we call panning. And panning is really important when we start getting lots of different sounds into our creation, our production. You know, getting things just straight down the middle can sound sort of cluttered and bad if we've got heaps of sounds. So placing your sounds in the left and right speaker can really create an effective mix. So that's a basic layout of our arrange view and our menu and using our master track. Now down the bottom we've got two really important tabs. The first tab that I've engaged now is our instrument and effect rack. So this is where we can add in different sounds and effects to each individual track. So right now I have the kick drum track selected. I've got my instrument sounds all loaded up here. And if I select an audio effect, I could maybe drop something in over here. And when I play the kick drum, I can create an interesting sound just by Alright, so that's our instrument view. If I want to add a different sound on each track, you have to make sure you select the track first, and then you can create, add your, change whatever you want in it. It could be the sounds or adding effects or anything like that. The other tab down here is another tab that you're going to use straight away. Now this is what we call the piano roll. I'm going to select another track that will give us a better view of the piano roll. There we go, not that one. Aha, here we go. Alright, so this is what we call a piano roll, and this literally is piano keys. Okay, so we can see we've got our C note here, and we step up, we've got our different notes across the piano. The great thing about this program is it tells us what note we're playing just by hovering on it, or if I create a little sample trigger point, it'll actually tell us what note it's playing. Okay, so that's really important for later when we start creating bass lines and chords and stuff like that. I can scroll up and down. I can also zoom in and out. If I go right up the top, you see my icon changes, and I can zoom in and out, which is really important. And then we need to look at the timeline here. This is fairly straightforward, but can be a bit confusing because it does change. So right now what we're looking at is a clip that loops over 2 whole bars. So we've got bar 1 here and bar 2 here. And within this bar we've got 4 whole beats. So this is our time signature. So we've got 4 beats in our bar. You can see that I've got 4 beats. If we have a look at beat 1, okay, at the very start of the loop, beat 2, so 1.2, you see that larger notch there, that's beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. Then we go into the second bar, so this is the first beat of the second bar, second beat of the second bar, third beat of the second bar, and fourth beat of the second bar. Within each bar we have some more divisions, and depending on how far we zoom in, depends on how many little segments, I guess we can call them, there are. Right now, if we're just out so we can see most of the bar, we're going to have 4 segments, which should be enough for everybody. These segments are useful because they'll help us lock our samples, our trigger points, into the correct placement for a good rhythm. Okay, these segments, there's a tutorial that Mr. Perry and I have made, so you will need to watch that to explain rhythms and bars. But essentially we're looking at a bar, and across the bar we subdivide the bar into 4 segments, so that we've got some rhythms might be landing on what we call the downbeat, some rhythms might come in on the upbeat, and some might sort of be placed either side somewhere. Okay, and we'll see that within some drum rhythms. Right now we're looking at the hi-hat, and if I trigger the hi-hat and make sure my solo button isn't on another channel, we can see we'll include the kick drum, so we'll get the downbeat of the kick drum, and we can see if I select the right clip view, we can see that the hi-hat is coming on the upbeat. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay. Alright, you can see that we're looping over 2 bars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can hear that hi-hat coming in on the upbeat. Alright, so that's just a quick explanation of how to use your timeline. Some people sometimes make the mistake of not worrying about getting everything in sequence or in time, and if we do that, things can kind of sound a little bit off. Alright, so you can hear that first bar was a little bit wonky with where the notes were played, so something to really think about. If you can hear that something's not right, go back and look at your patterns in the piano roll and just check that you've got your trigger points in the right place. Now, when we're creating our own trigger points, we can use the pen tool up here and then just type in what we want. I find that a little bit limiting because sometimes we also want to select things and delete and move things around. So A quick way I find, or the best way I find to actually enter in notes is, instead of getting the pen tool, I just double click where I want to enter the notes in. Double click and they will generally appear. Alright, and then I can select, move, and like Word we have copy and paste, and we also have cut and paste. Alright, so things like that. And then delete. Right, so that's the layout and how we're going to work our way through Ableton. So right now we're in our piano roll. Let's go back to our clip view and our instrument rack view. Now to do this task, you're going to just look at the different patterns. So this is going to require you to look at the patterns in our piano roll. But we want to also select the clip view. So your piano roll looks a little bit like this. Grab the top part of it and slide it down. Okay, now we can see like a segmented view of the piano roll and our track view and our arrange view. So what you're going to do is look at each of the patterns individually and listen back to them. So I'm just going to play it, and then click on each of the patterns in that sequence. Okay. So we've got our kick drum, 4 to the floor, 2, 2, 3, 4. Then if we go to the snare track, so the snare is landing on every second beat. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You'll find our claps are the same, and this is for our basic house beat. So different genres will have placement and sequences that are slightly different to each other. And then obviously our hi-hats, if I find them, okay, you can see they're on the upbeat, so they're sort of landing off the beat. Alright, let's have a look at basic house beat number 2. Alright. Okay. So having a look at the snare drum. Now you can see here's the variation. So we've got the snare drum on the beat. The snare drum is on beat 3 of bar 3 in the second bar. Bar 2, beat 3, sorry. And it's actually landing on the upbeat. So we've got it going on and 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, you can hear it coming in on the and of 3, and then landing on the 4th beat. So giving us that sort of double clap, or double snare sound, sorry, not clap. And then you'll notice the clap is the same, so it's coming on the and as well as on the downbeat of 4. Alright, let's go to a different type instrument or different genre, so going to a basic electro beat. Okay, now we can hear the bass drums doing something different, and we can also hear the hi-hats. The hi-hats are busier. So if we zoom in on bar 1, we can see we've got the hi-hats on the downbeat and on the upbeat, so giving us that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alright, and you see some are longer, so it's giving us a longer sound, and then we've got some really shortened sounds as well. Now we can change the length of our sounds. If I go like that, drag it out. Okay, you can hear that I changed the pattern. I'll put it back to how it was. Alright, let's have a look at clap. So our claps are landing on beats 2 and the end of beat 4. Yeah, so it's a bit of a mixed up sort of pattern there. Alright, let's have a look at our trap sound. So it's a bit more of a sparser rhythm. The snares are landing on beats 3 in each bar. So in bar 1 it's coming on beat 3, and bar 2 it's coming on beat 3. Our claps are the same, and then our hi-hats get kind of busy, similar to the electro beats in a way. Okay. And then finally, let's have a look at some dubstep. All right, so essentially what you're going to do next is create your own beat. So I'm going to step you through how to make a house beat and then maybe do a variation on it. So down the bottom here, we've got these blank clips. Now we actually need to do 3 beats. So these grayed out areas, if you double click on them, it's going to create more clips for you. Now our clips are what holds the sequenced information. If they don't have a clip in there, you will find that the bottom part of our page is blank in both tab views, okay? So it's really important that you put in a clip. So the first thing we're going to do is create our kick drum. So I'm going to go into our piano roll view, and you notice that the piano roll view does change, okay? In this situation, we've just got the sample that we have to deal with. In our hats, you'll notice we've got the whole piano, all right? If you want to find the note that you see, we can change the pitch, okay? So just be aware of that. Sometimes the view does change a little bit. All right, so what we need is a kick drum on the downbeat of every single beat in each bar. So I've got a 1 bar loop here. Actually, I'm going to make it 2 bars. So I'm going to go over here to the length on the left-hand side and make it 2 bars in length. That way we can do a bit of a variation in the second bar once we've got a beat established. So I'm going to trigger that. I'm going to stop everything else from playing. All right. So we've got our 4 to the floor. Now let's put in a snare. So we're going to go snares 2 and 4. I'm going to make that 2 bar length as well. So 2 and 4. Right, going to put in a clap now, and I'm going to, once again, it's going to be 2 bars in length, and I'm going to start with 2 and 4. Okay. Oops, got it turned around. There we go. All right, now the hi-hats. So we can change the pitch of the hi-hat. I'm going to go at D sharp. All right, so I'm just going to go off beat. I'm going to make a 1 bar loop here. All right, I'm going to make that sound a little bit longer. That's better. Actually, you know what? Let's do 2 bars. So I'm going to actually copy and paste that over. That's not where it's meant to go. There we go. All right, so there we have our groove. Now, that's a basic house beat, but it's not much happening there. It's going to be the same through the whole song. It kind of gets boring. So let's make some variations. So maybe after every second bar, I'm going to add in a little bit of a double kick sort of sound. So I might go, I'll select my kick track, and I'm going to put a kick on the end. Actually, I'm going to put it just after the upbeat. There we go. All right. And now looking at our snares, I might go just a double sort of snare and clap. Actually, you know what? Let's make it have that little skip just after the upbeat. And a little clap on the downbeat of the first bar. Alright. There we go. Alright. Now let's add just a little bit of hi-hat variation. So let's start with some pitch. Okay. And I'm going to do something a little bit. I'm going to shorten this hi-hat and I'm going to just see how that sounds. There we go. There we go. All right, so now we've got something with a little bit of variation. So that's actually what you're going to do. So start off by copying one of the patterns that you have in the examples, and then try to just use your ears. Place different parts of the instruments in a drum kit on different parts of your bars and beats. I recommend that you make sure each of your loops is 2 bars in length, so that gives you more scope to just kind of get a bit creative. If it's just 1 bar cycling through all the time, it gets a little bit robotic. So that's pretty much everything you need to do. The last thing that you need to do is be able to load in a sample of your own. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go over here to our menu. We're going to add a folder. And our folder right now, I'm just going to go onto my desktop, and that will allow me to select things. So if I select that as my folder, but you might select your D drive folder, your DJ folder in your D drive to find your go through your folder systems. So I've selected that. You can see down here at the bottom I've got desktop view, and now any folders I have on the desktop I can access. So let's go to the electronic music production, and it's telling me I need to load up a kick sample, okay, onto the student kick, I think it was, onto the student drum beat, okay. So anyway, I'll show you how to do this. So we're going to load up a drum beat. So we're going to go to drums, and I'm just going to get the drum rack at the top, okay. What we have here is a bunch of keys, and this is our trigger keys, okay. And we can load samples onto each of these individual keys. So I'm going to go down to the down to the desktop view, go into my folder to find the kick drum sample. That's the kick we're going to use, and I'm going to load it in onto C1. All right, and there's a little play button there, so we can now hear that sample. And I'm going to actually add that into our sample. So I've got it here, just to create a different, a bit of a slightly different textural sound. I'll trigger it. All right, simple as that. Okay, so that's first task done. That's gone through pretty much the whole steps and the processes you're going to need to do yourself to complete this task. Once you've done this, this is where you're going to use OneNote to actually load up all of your files. So you're going to save your file. So I'm going to save a live set. Go to save as, and I'm going to save it in the same file, but I'm going to just put underscore at the end of it, Mr. Cowley. All right, obviously you put your name there. Save that. Now, let's have a look at the folder so that you understand how it is. So now I've got this on my desktop. If I go into my folder, you'll see now I've got my personal session saved. So now all what we need to do is to compress the folder. So you're going to go in here, you're going to go right click on the folder, open send to section, and then go compressed zip folder. It's going to create a compressed folder which we can then use to put onto our OneDrive. which then gets linked into our OneNote. So that's a whole nother process that we'll go through in class, but that's just a quick demonstration on how easy it is to compress a folder ready for submission once you've completed the task. This task is super easy. It shouldn't take you more than half a lesson to actually get done. So looking forward to seeing some of the creative options you come up with, some of your drum beats. Okay guys, so we'll leave it there.